Welcome back, everyone, to another fun-filled episode with Nicholas Kuhner. Today we've got Katie Peterman, a former chief of staff, founder of FRX, a national team of elite fractional executives, helping small and mid-sized businesses gain access to executive leadership without the cost of full-time hires. She's led and scaled multiple 7- and 8-figure companies and helped dozens more reach their next level of growth. And she has passion for helping as many other companies get to those numbers as well. So Katie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about a challenge that a lot of companies have, which is releasing a bit of control of their business to other people. So bringing in outsiders or bringing in specialist support or bringing in other agencies who are going to do functions that the business either wants to outsource or thinks that they don't have the capabilities, etc. You've worked in quite a variety of businesses, and those large. We'll ignore the 8-figure companies for now. We'll look at the slightly smaller sort of startup phase companies. These guys can't necessarily afford Fortune 500 salaries for bringing in a COO or bringing in a finance person or bringing in a marketing director or director of sales. How do you deal with that process, and how do you link the right talent to small and medium-sized companies who think they've got the potential to grow to the next level?
Yeah. So with startups, when they're utilizing agencies that have, experienced people, experienced staff, much more people on board, you're not kind of handcuffed to just one person and putting it all on them while you're branching out. So, in the beginning, and for a lot of large companies too, later down the road, proven agencies are the way to go. It helps you go faster at a different speed that you wouldn't be able to do alone. When we're looking at specific skill sets, I think that, marketing, for example, is very common. A lot of people, because there's so many different niches, right? You have copywriting, you have an ad buyer, you have someone who does UX, UI design, websites, domains. You can't just lump marketing into one. So that's where marketing agencies are really attractive for a lot of people, because they have all of those people on their team and they can kind of subsection things out. What people kind of struggle with, or maybe they don't, is they're not verifying all of the talent that's inside of that agency. They're just kind of assuming well, they can do all of it, right? And some agencies, yes, they do. Some agencies are very niche and they're not really qualifying. They're just taking an agency and they're letting them okay, you get to take all the control. And this is what really hurts a lot of owners and a lot of business owners is you have to treat them, all agencies, the same way that you would treat someone that you're personally hiring and bringing on board in your company. You have to let them know your mission and your values, right? What your expectations are, what they need to be a part of. And this is someone that you're hiring for your company, and they need to be reporting to you. So what type of reporting do you expect them to deliver on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, right? What milestones do they need to have? A lot of people will just bring agencies on board and they're like, okay, we'll let you run with it. And after 60, 90 days of payroll going out the door and they don't have the results that they're looking for, this is why a lot of people are burnt out on marketing agencies. They didn't set clear boundaries before.
I guess one of the issues is that companies who realize we need a marketing function or folks in marketing, the reason they're bringing in people is because they don't have that set of skills. So how do you help these companies set up sort of those KPIs or give the best practice to them? Because that's why they're bringing in this person, to bring in that expertise if it isn't in the business.
Yes. So even if you don't necessarily have the experience or the skill set, and that's why you're bringing someone else on board, you have to speak in the deliverables and the outcome, right? So you need to be clear on what the outcome and the desired outcome is. and then just say, how are you able to do that? You're the expert. Before signing anything, before jumping into it, say, I need you to basically reverse engineer this for me. Can you walk me down and give me a clear path of how you're going to do this, the timeline in which this will be done, so I know how to check in and ensure that we have progress in this, right? And what success stories have you had in completing this exact same thing with my industry or my market? A lot of people, if it does need to be industry specifics, especially when we're in the marketing space, that's very important. In the sales space, that's really important to be industry specific. Operations, personnel, not so much. It doesn't need to be industry specific, but I think saying what the desired outcome is very clearly. So you start with your expectations of the KPIs and say, okay, I would like to get to 20,000 members on our email list, right? I think we would like to do that with lead captures and funnels and a few new community channels, but our goal is to have 20,000, new members, new lead captures, and then tell them why, right? Say, okay, our audience is fatigued, right? Our email list is at a 3% open rate. We need to rebuild our community and restart our funnel. We'd like to, fully start by completely retargeting a new audience. But you're telling them why you're building it, and you're setting a clear expectation. And then with them being the expert, right, and you not knowing, they should be able to completely map out a plan and walk you through it to where you have a basic understanding of how to hold them accountable to the commitments they made to get you to that point, right? Or they might come back and say, hey, we can't get you to 20,000 new members in X amount of time, but we think we could get you to 12,000 in X amount of time. And now you're educated and you have an opportunity to say, yes, this works for me, let's go ahead, or no, this doesn't. A lot of people will just be very vague and they'll say, we want to build our online community. And they say, okay, great, we can do that. That's what we've done. Okay, perfect. Here you go. So no expectations, no boundaries, no timelines, no commitments. And even the best of people, right? Like, let's say you and I, we have a conversation, we work together, we get started. You're a rock star. You've been doing this for X amount of years. This person is a rock star. I've been doing this for X amount of years. We have completely different backgrounds. And I think this is going to be most helpful. You think this is going to be most helpful. And now we're going in two different paths. So even though we're showing up and we're giving our best with amazing backgrounds and experiences and histories, because we didn't communicate the expectation to make sure that we're aligned before starting this project, right? We could definitely have a miscommunication, an assumption, and you may feel like it wasn't worth the investment or the time. I may feel like my work is not appreciated or honored, right? Which just ultimately hurts the relationship and no one gets the success that they're looking for.
I suppose it comes with a bit of maturity from the person the company bringing in these people, because you've got to have a very clear plan. I think one of the challenges that happens with companies is that they say, I need a marketing person, I need a finance person. They bring in very good people, for example, from outside, and they haven't done all of the elements that you've done now, and they lose money, or they're disappointed with the service, and then they give a bad review. So I've seen that a lot with companies that I've worked with as well. They want marketing done. You do a great job. You bring in an excellent campaign, but they haven't got their ducks in a row. So I've had one campaign where the campaign was so successful that the client couldn't actually manage. This is obviously the kind of problem you want, but they couldn't manage the demand. They didn't have the website didn't work well enough. They didn't have enough stock. They disappointed customers, and they didn't know how to manage it. We did our job from a marketing perspective, but the client wasn't able to deliver on their side. And I'm sure you've had some experience with that as well.
Yes, and I think that's, everyone's responsibility in the beginning. Sometimes owners don't know. I think that it goes above and beyond, and you always should be going above and beyond in your relationship. Just because you're coming in maybe as a marketing agency or someone else, operations wise, right? If we come in as operations, I'm still looking at marketing and sales. If sales comes in, they need to be looking at marketing, fulfillment, and customer service. You should be asking those questions. It should be a part of everyone's journey. Sometimes the owner doesn't know the difference, and that's why they're hiring you, in your expertise. And with your expertise, you should be providing guidance and leadership, right? Even if it's outside of necessarily your scope of work and your responsibility, if it ties into you, you should be setting them up, for success.
So obviously, the ideal situation would be to clone a whole bunch of Katies. So you want multiple Katies to be able to be doing different roles, but you are offering fractional services through FRX, and you've got a national team of elite fractional executives. So maybe talk to me about how you select and vet and bring in the partners that you're using to help businesses, because I think that'll give some comfort to people listening as well, that you're doing this kind of background check and due diligence yourself before you set them on their clients. Like I remember working with McKinsey, Deloitte, etc., and we'd have big projects, and they'd send out fresh graduates to come and talk to an oil and gas company, and they had never filled up a car by themselves, for example. So
Yeah.
not those people.
Yes, definitely not those people. And hey, everyone has to start somewhere. So if that's someone's model, then that's their model. I'm naturally a very skeptical person. I am type A, more analytical engineer mindset.
You'd have been very skeptical of these guys that I was dealing with, so I'm just putting it out
Yes,
there.
yes. I give the sales guys the door to door. I give them a hard time when they come to my door. I give them a little run for their money. I work
Good.
them a little bit, but I always sign the pest control contract. I think I have 3 pest control contacts because I'm like, hey, you did a good job. So I still support them.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, I'm in a very unique position, and I'm actually very proud of my team. I'm very thankful and grateful for the position that I am in. Everyone on our team has worked for me directly, or been inside of a company that I have been the COO of. So I've really inherited people. I do a really good job at building relationships, staying in touch. I always make a list of people who are A players, and I keep them on my phone. And I keep in contact with them, 2, 3 times a year. I check in, I see where they are, I follow their journeys, on LinkedIn. But I really make a point for people that I'm like, hey, they do a really good job. They're skilled at what they do. They show up well. They're a great professional. I make a note of that, and I make sure to stay on their radar and make sure that they're staying on mine as well. So everyone on the team has worked for me directly or been inside of companies that I have ran, which I'm very proud to say. But the minimum is that they have to have sat in the C-suite role for a minimum of 2 years inside of a company. I think that, people learn very quickly, and a year somewhere, you either make it or you don't. And the person is either satisfied or they're not. Either way, you're going to have amazing learning lessons. And what I look for in those learning lessons in the experience is, what relationships did they build? I'm looking at their soft skills, right? It's not always the COO's accolades or results. Their team that they're responsible for is typically the one that made the sales happen, right? Made the numbers grow, made, the open rates. The COO is not in there working on SEO and all the backlinking. There's teams that they're guiding. So I'm really looking at their soft skills, their personal skills, their relationship ability, and their leadership ability, as well as their skill sets. But 2 years minimum sitting in the C-suite, executive level position. And then just because of the level of clients that we have, I want to know that they've been responsible for at least a $7 million budget yearly, annually. That's kind of like our minimum. So whether it's ad spend, whether it's total payroll, whether it's growth, that's definitely something that we are looking for. Just to make sure that, no matter who we come across, they feel confident in holding that responsibility. Because I think finances is what keeps everyone up at night.
Exactly. Um, at what stage should a startup or a business, it doesn't necessarily have to be a startup, but does a company need to start considering a COO? Because uh, during the life of a business and the founder, they think they can do everything until they can't. When do you? And I know this is how long is a piece of string, but when do you think is the right time for somebody to bring in a fractional CMO or a full time CMO? Is there a sweet spot?
Yes, and that's a great question. This is something that a lot of people, juggle with and go back and forth on and really have a hard time on expanding. And I always tell owners, because I'm naturally a number two, I'm naturally an operator at heart. I just like supporting people. You were given a dream, a mission, something that you're very passionate about. When you first started this journey, you had excitement and joy, and staying up late was no problem, right? Waking up early to go do research was no problem. Talking to people, being on the road, whatever it is, was no problem. And when that joy starts to disappear and you become tired and you feel weighed down and your dream and your mission is not exciting anymore, you need to take everything that weighs you down and all the things that you're not good at, like admin work and paperwork and follow up and collections and accounting and bookkeeping, right? All of those things that don't go towards your dream and they're really just pulling you down. You need to take all of those things, and even if you start small with a really great executive assistant, right? Maybe a director of operations, maybe an operations assistant, but maybe you start small. You need to take the things that weigh you down and kill the joy, right? That they're essentially dragging down your dream, and you need to hand it off to someone who's good at all the things that you're not good at. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I brought myself this success. I've gotten myself this far. I need to go find another version of myself." And you don't, because you're the only one that's responsible for the dream and the mission. You need to go find someone who they love doing all the things that you hate doing. And there are people out there that truly, genuinely enjoy, and it brings them joy to do all of the things that you don't like doing. And that's who you need to go find and bring to your team. They're out there, right? You don't need someone telling you, hey, let's do this different with your dream. Let's go build this instead of this. You don't need someone changing the path of the mission. You need someone doing all the things that you're not good at. So, really, I would say when you start to feel weighed down and it's starting to feel like a bit much and you're not experiencing joy, your fire is a little damp, it's getting a little low, that's when you need to hand it off to someone else.
And I suppose that brings us to the point of it, of your business being fractional, offering fractional roles versus full-time roles. Because I suppose one of the aspects of this is that getting that person is going to be quite expensive sometimes. So if you had to get a full-time COO or full-time, executive in the business, two things are going to happen. That executive is going to get bored half the time because I see operations people like you sometimes as like race horses. You are very good in short sprints, get things out, and then the problems are solved. Why must I sit here and waste my time doing nothing?
Yes.
So I think that might be a good analogy for the kind of things that you do.
That's a perfect analogy. And yes, because they want to go, hunt, kill, finish the race as quickly as possible. So it's actually a great position for a lot of operators and a lot of COOs and, executives. But also, I just truly believe that everyone needs access to the highest level of talent that's going to be the most supportive for them, right? I've also been in the founder's seat, and I've experienced that when you're going through something and you're building something and you're like, I just wish I had like my right hand person to really help me through this and to do it the right way. I know the pain that owners experience when they're hiring just who they can afford at that moment, which most of the time is green entry level talent. And then they spend their time correcting that person or building that person or helping that person with their learning curve instead of contributing to the mission and getting it done, the way that they're needing. So, having that cost of the rock star person, we all want the rock star, we all want the best, second in command, but yes, it comes with a very hefty price tag, right, annually. And so having access to someone, a whole bench of people that's on demand, plug and play for when you need it, at the time that you need it, for the duration, it kind of really puts it at peace and at ease in someone's mind of okay, I don't have to commit to a year, I don't have to commit to a crazy salary.
How attached are you to your staff? If somebody has been put into a company as a fractional person, have any of your staff been offered full-time roles?
They are, and I have a rule on the team. I tell everyone you get to leave once, because it's not a revolving door, and I have a business to run. But I want them to be happy, and because I support them, if they were to be given their dream job or something that was just an amazing fit, I want them to go experience that, and I trust them to make the right decision. And sometimes there's a carrot that is dangled, from people, and so I've actually had two throughout the past, I'd say. 5 years, I've had two that have gone and explored that, and about 3 months later, I'll get a message or a check in, because I check on them and make sure that they're happy and supported, and they have the tools and resources that they need to be successful. But it's usually about 3 months, because they don't have the same freedom either. I'm able, because it's just fractional on our end too. I'm able to give them a bit of freedom, and they're able to design their lifestyle as they wish and have, family time and
Mm.
vacations and things like that, where when they're full-time with someone else, they don't get those things. So I always tell everyone, you're allowed to leave once, but we're not a revolving door.
Well, it's always a good reflection on you if somebody does say, "Wow, this person you've put in has done a great job. We'd like to keep them longer." So that's always a nice that's always a positive.
But we also help, because of that. We do help if, for us, if we come into a company and we recognize, okay, like for example, I was recently working with Owen Security. They're a national, all across the nation, security company. And I said, and I had been working with them for I think about 6 months. And I said, hey, look, I love you guys. I love this team. You guys light up my day. April is their head of operations, and I just really enjoy talking to April. But I said, you got to bite the bullet. You guys need to find a full time COO. You need someone boots on the ground. You need someone in there building the culture. You guys are so large at this time. Like, it's time. And so we also help them find a long term executive that is a very good fit. We have tools and resources and licensing with different softwares that we use to help them find a long-term fit if we feel like they're at that point and it's the best fit.
Great. Well, I suppose you want the companies that you're working with to grow, so it shouldn't be a fractional position forever. You've got to put yourself out of, well, you literally are putting yourself out of a job every time you join a company. That should be the aim, I guess.
Yes, if you're
So
so
hopefully,
good at systems, you should be able to replace yourself.
exactly. So this, luckily, America's big. So well, when you finish, when you've done the whole of America, you can open up your website to the rest of the world and help some of us.
Yes.
Where am I going to send people? And luckily, the majority of our listeners are in the States. So, where am I going to send folks if they'd like to find out a little bit more about you and your offerings, and if their fire is dimming a little bit and the excitement in their business is dimming because of lack of operational capability? Where can I send them?
Yeah, the best place to, I want to have a real connection, conversation. And so the best place to start is on LinkedIn. I don't manage my own social channels or Facebook or anything like that. I'm not a huge fan of that. But, professional connections, LinkedIn is the best place. So just Katie Peterman on LinkedIn, and you can find my team and the pages. But I would love to chat, help anyone. If their light is getting dim, like you said, and they can connect.
Great. I'll put your details in the description of the podcast. Katie, it's been lovely speaking to you. Thank you so much. And I hope people are inspired that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. If you're losing your fire, come and speak to Katie.
Thank you so much.
If you have a startup or business but want to really turn it into a brand, why not get in touch with me directly to get a couple of tips and tricks or to get you started on the right path? You can do this at wunderbrand.com.